If everybody is wise, wisdom will be common with that
value. Feedback from the future.
So, first of all, religion is not God. It doesn't matter what faith represents it. Religion is a human attempt to capture God. It is not God.
Please say that again. Say that again. They need to hear it. You know what? When I say this to people, they think I'm mad. They think I'm crazy.
That's what they think, because they don't get it.
Please say it again. Please say it again.
Religion is not God. And it doesn't matter what faith represents that. Religion is a human attempt to capture God. It is not God. And we have to be clear that religion is the social engineering of spirituality and faith. It is not spiritual and it is not faith. It's the social engineering by man to institutionalize God into a systemic format that allows the human weakness to find comfort in the regimentation of man by man. It is not God. And religion, fortunately, has a lifespan of 50 years, as far as I'm concerned. I don't see religion in the future. Religion as we know it, organized religion as we know it, has a lifespan of 50 years. Spirituality will expand, let's be clear. Faith will grow, let's be clear. But organized religion as we know it will not survive the future. 3 generations will humble it. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta. Those 3 generations don't have the reverence. They don't have the regimentation that religion needs to sit in. Religion needs a chronic esteem gap. He needs fear and opacity. He needs ignorance, he needs fear, and he needs opacity, regimentation to find expression. Those 3 generations, Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta, don't have that. Then their commitment to freedom, their commitment to transparency and accountability, right? And essentially their commitment to the flatness of the world through technology will make them fact check anything, because religion requires the adulteration of knowledge for its strength. You have to lie to keep religion going. And with the flatness that technology brings, these young people will fact check anything, and they will know that this is a lie. This is not going to work. A young man in Canada at a conference I was speaking, and the young man during the Q&A asked a question. He said, there were only 2 people in the Garden of Eden, and the Garden of Eden crashed all the same. There were only 2 people in the whole world, and the Garden of Eden crashed. If God could not manage 2 people in the garden, how is he managing 8 billion people in the world? How is he managing 8 billion people? You see, it made sense. You just can't throw him away. You have to answer that question. And by God's grace, of course, I answer the question. But you can't say, what nonsense is this saying? You are irreverent. You are not respecting God. No. You will lose his generation, because it's a generation of questions. And those who will mentor that generation must be a generation of answers. So you have a generation of questions. Gen Z, Gen Alpha, and Gen Beta, they are a probing generation. They are a question-sensitive generation. The generation to give them the baton and to mentor them must be a generation of answers and clarity. You see? So, but whether we understand this dynamic or not, the truth is religion cannot survive. Religion as we know it, organized religion as we know it, cannot survive the future. So spirituality is not religion. Spirituality is the ability to communicate connectedness and relatability, spirit, soul, and body. It means that when you are spiritual, the more spiritual you become, the more relatable you become. The more spiritual you become, the more diffused you become, the more connected you become. The proof of spirituality is connectedness. So for me, the person who gave us the internet is more spiritual than a million pastors, as far as I'm concerned.
Wow.
Right? So we need to understand these dynamics. Now, the blocks of spirituality is a different ballgame altogether. And part of the challenge, people speak about ATR, African traditional religion, and we speak about that. And we try to say that, we should return to what our fathers worship, and that Christianity is a white man's religion. People say those kind of things. But first of all, Christianity is not a white man's religion, right? Sorry, let me define that. Christianity is a white man's religion because the Bible did not call the Christ and his followers Christians. Human beings called Christ's followers Christians, not God. There is no verse in the scriptures where God said, my Christians, or my Christian sons and daughters. God did not call anybody a Christian. Jesus did not call anybody a Christian. There is no material from God or from his apostles or from his disciples that called anybody a Christian. The nomenclature Christian or Pentecostal or evangelical or Catholic are all human inventions. God did not call anybody that. The Lord God knows those who are his, and let everyone that nameth the name of the Lord depart from iniquity, right? The idea is that, in fact, before people were called Christians, the followers of Christ were called the people of the way. They were called the people of the way because these guys were way makers. These guys were creating stuff. These guys were creating relief. They were creating relief and advancement in society. These guys were, at some point, somebody said that, who are these guys who have not gone to school? They are not learned. How are they able to talk this way? Because the way they were talking, they were communicating like they had PhD, like they have bachelor's degree, like they have master's degree, like they have the learning of their time. And they were questioning them. These are fishermen. These guys didn't go to school. How are they communicating like this? And somebody said, oh, they have been with Jesus. Nobody said, so who is Jesus? The moment they said they have been with Jesus, people accepted it. Why? Because Jesus at the time was an alternative power center, an alternative knowledge center in popular culture. He was an alternative knowledge. It wasn't some pitiable movement in a corner that cannot go mainstream. Every media was talking about Jesus. If Jesus was alive now, CNN would be interviewing him. It will be on Time magazine. It will be on all those, big platforms. You don't say you are a follower of Christ and you are hibernating in a corner trying to manage your material comfort and seeking welfare, from God as a powerless entity in the system. No, that's not what it is. The idea of faith was to represent an alternative power and knowledge center in the culture, right? Now, I always say to people that, for example, the Ethiopian eunuch took the gospel. This was aware of his African traditional religion. This was a chief in Africa. This is a leader in Africa, right? Who, all the guys who talk about HCR now, they were not there. They are just reading about it. This guy was there. He was a leader of African traditional religion. He was an Ethiopian. He was one of the first people to receive. The gospel came to Ethiopia in almost the first month of after Pentecost. They were one of the earliest, even before he came to Europe. He came to Africa first. He came to Africa. The Ethiopian eunuch that they had to minister to, who then got born again and took that experience. Even on Pentecost Day, there were people from Ethiopia who were there, who spoke in tongues, who knew this African religion more than anybody talking about it now. They knew about it, and they converted all the same. And they took that gospel back to Africa. So it wasn't the white man that brought the gospel to Africa. The one he brought is compromised on many levels. We understand that. But he is not the one that brought the gospel to Africa. And I always say to people, listen, if what we had was enough, where was it when we were colonized? Because everything we call voodoo, everything we call jazz, went against the white man's gunpowder and lost. So let's be clear. There's something in that psychology that is not adequate to define the territorial integrity of African people across different geographies within Africa, right? So we need to sit down to say, how do we go forward? And just because you practice something, how do we then say that the reason why Africa will prosper is when we go back to African traditional religion? We see this religion today. We see its expression today. What is its value? What is its nation building component? Right? What is its capacity to impact on GDP and per capita income? Right? How has it been able to tell its own story and survive generations? Right? So God, on many levels, has to be able to propagate himself. It can't be at the mercy of man. So we can't say that, we are the owners of God, and then human beings came and disrupted God, and God became weak. And so we could not take God into the future again. Then something is wrong with that God. If it's God, it should be able to defend itself and propagate itself across different generations. It should not lose. And then human beings now became the excuse for his own enslavement. And God now says, I'm not well expressed in the 2025 because the white man came. Who is the white man? We're talking about God here. So I mean, who is a white man? You should survive that. You should be able to take whatever it is you call religion, should survive the machination of any human movement. You see what I'm saying? So if you admit that colonialism and slave trade has destroyed that religion, and we need to now find our way back to it, then God lost. And that's not God. You see, we can go into this debate on many levels, but I always say to people, the only way to articulate movement is to see how the dimension of your belief impacts on 3 areas. My brother, 3 areas: relief, peace, and progress. Any God in your life that cannot define your meaning along these 3 lines must be weak, right? Must be weak. So whether you like it or not, you have to check. The monarch of the universe cannot be in a space, and that space cannot be defined by relief, peace, and progress, right? So we have to understand the powerlessness of religion. I say, it doesn't matter whether it's African traditional religion, it doesn't matter whether it's Christianity or Islam or Buddhism, it doesn't matter what it is. If you call it religion, right? Once you call it religion, it fails the test of universality and cannot sit in the future. And for Africa, though, what has happened to us is we have created a state of powerlessness based on the weakness of diabolism, based on the weakness of fetichism, animism, right? And we cannot define, we are now attempting on many levels in the name of religion to define our reality away from the working of our brain. And I always say to people, your most spiritual organ is your brain. Your brain is your most spiritual organ. It's your most, and I say to people, your brain functionally is more superior to your spirit. Your brain functionally is more superior to your spirit. And I'll prove it. I tell people, if your spirit is dead, even if you are spiritually dead, you can still be a billionaire. There are billionaires who are spiritually dead. There are very successful people who are wealthy, who are spiritually dead in that sense, because they don't worship anything in that sense. But their brain has created a lot in the world. So even if you are spiritually dead, you can still run a big corporation, you can run a bank, you can create Microsoft, you can build Apple, right? You can build Uwe, you can build companies across the world, even if you are spiritually dead. But if you are brain dead, you are useless to God, you are useless to the devil, you are useless to everybody. You cannot get anything done. If your brain is dead, you cannot pray, you cannot discern, you cannot interpret, you cannot take action, you cannot save anybody, you have no commitment, you have no responsibility, you have no essence. If your brain is dead, you are dead. How can you then tell me that your spirit is more important than your brain? Positionally, your spirit is more powerful than your brain. But functionally, your brain is superior to your spirit, and a partnership must exist between your brain and your spirit if you are going to communicate value to the world. So if I'm your son and you are a billionaire, my brother, if Lanre is a billionaire and I'm his son, because I am his son, I have inheritance automatically. I have inheritance. But because I am Lanre Olushola's son, and my name is Kunle Olushola, and I have access to all the billions that he has, right? It doesn't make me the inventor of anything in society. He doesn't make me better than anybody in society. The son of Bill Gates will not necessarily give us the next level of the internet. He has positionally, he has all the wealth of Bill Gates, but it doesn't mean he will communicate the relevance of Bill Gates, except he makes up his mind to supply a level of discipline and create products and services that can unlock usage and gratitude in the culture. If your contribution cannot unlock gratitude and usage in the culture, you are not relevant in the culture, right? So just because you are the son of Bill Gates gives you inheritance positionally, but it doesn't give you relevance and activity in the culture. So if you say you are a child of God, I respect you. Your spiritual connection is powerful, but the proof of your spirituality has to be products and services, philosophies, theories, ideologies, poems, systems, structures, organizations, institutions that you build in the world to unlock usage in the world and gratitude in the world. If your contribution is not doing that, then you are not spiritual. You are religious, no doubt. You are religious because religion is coercion. It thrives on ignorance, fear, and opacity. Spirituality is freedom. It thrives on relatability and connectedness. When you are spiritual, you are creating. When you are spiritual, you are contributing. When you are religious, you are taking. When you are religious, you are oppressing. When you are religious, you are creating limitation. When you are spiritual, you are creating freedom and liberation, and you are unlocking gratitude. So we have to understand these things. So the average African is now, if he has a problem right now, he will rather pray than think, because he thinks that thinking is not spiritual, that he has to accept a level of helplessness that a superior being must come and liberate. And in his hypocrisy, he will still call his brain God-given brain. In his hypocrisy, he will call the brain my God-given brain. But when it's time to create solutions, he will abandon that brain and expect some type of movement from heaven to come and solve his problem, forgetting that he has a God-given brain. So God must be a waster to give you a brain and not expect you to deploy it. I like a scripture in the Bible that says, he that wastes is a brother to him that destroys. So a waster and a destroyer are equal. They are siblings. So if God gives you something, he's not going to expect you to waste it. He gave you eyes, he gave you a mouth, a hand, a leg, a brain. And these are all instruments we must deploy, right? So the way we now articulate religion, we express it more, particularly in the African context. We express it more in pulling ourselves down, in attacking ourselves in the name of diabolism. Somebody asked me, PK, is jazz real? Is jazz real? Is voodoo real? Can somebody sit down in his house and call your name? And wherever you are dying. I said, then why didn't they call Lord Lugard? Why didn't they call Lord Lugard's name from a room and weaken him from the room? Why didn't they call the names of all these dictators that has ruled Africa? Why didn't they call their names and just weaken them from the room? How did slave trade work? Why didn't they call the slave traders and just call their names and then we move from there? How did slave trade work? How did colonialism work? When you have the power to call people from anywhere and just humble them from anywhere. You should have humbled the white man and put him in his place, right? You couldn't do that. That is on one level. The second level is, I actually answered and said, jazz work, but jazz only work through shared belief. It only works through shared belief. Anything works through shared belief. It's collaboration and teamwork. Even the Bible says that as long as they are one, nothing they imagine will be withheld from them. Anything works through shared belief. Once you and I have that shared belief, there's resonance to produce our intent, even if it is foolishness. We can have agreement to multiply our foolishness. We can multiply our stupidity by our resonance. There's nothing we cannot produce. We can produce evil at the highest level if we decide to create that. Even in good people, the potential for evil on a grand scale exists. And even in bad people, the potential for good on a grand scale exists, depending on how they are vibing and how they are resonating, right? The idea of coming together can produce anything. And so the reason why jazz did not stop, voodoo did not stop the white man, is because there was no shared belief. There was no shared belief. He doesn't share that belief. So when he came with his gunpowder, remember that it was gunpowder that colonized us. It was gunpowder. It was gun, and that gunpowder is no longer recognized in any warfare today. It's no longer recognized in any warfare. Now, that gunpowder, when it came, the African must have said, who is this? Brought out his psychology, and then began to, say his incantations and repeat his signs, and said all those big words that we say, and then cast a spell on the white man. And the white man asked the interpreter, is he angry with us? They say yes. Boom, boom. You know what they say, when the going gets tough, the tough keeps going. I said that's an assumption. That is assuming he knows the way, right? When the going gets tough, the tough seeks collaboration. So he just can't keep going. So when he saw the gunshot hit Balogun, the leader of the war, and he fell down, he looked at him and said, what is this small metal? He borrowed himself wisdom and said, no, I'm not going to contain this enemy. He introduced collaboration. What do you want? Slaves? We can give you 54 from this wing. If I talk to the next king, we can produce 100 slaves for you in a month. And they began to work it out. What else can you add? Whiskey? Glass? What can you bring? You see, these things happen. We can't wish them away. They happen, right? So there is a weakness in all we articulated as power. And listen, we have to understand that there was a time arrow and bow was the weapon of the world. There was a time horses was a superior weapon in the world. Chariots were superior weapons. Just because something made sense yesterday does not mean it's going to continue to make sense tomorrow. You can't be so loyal to what has worked and forget it's going to change. Disruption is always on the horizon. And a lot of what we knew as power has been disrupted by technology today, right? So any form of power today that is intangible cannot be understood or interpreted in popular culture except you dimension it into a usable format. It becomes a product, it becomes a service. CNN will never interview a witch. They will never interview a high priest. CNN, Time Magazine is not going to put a witch on its front cover. If you are going to get on the front cover of Time Magazine, your witchcraft better produce the next level of social media. Your witchcraft better produce the next level of the internet. Your witchcraft better produce a cure to cancer. If you can't communicate a relevance to society that unlocks gratitude and usage, you cannot make it to mainstream conversation. You can't. And so I don't care what people call their religion. I don't care what they call their spirituality. I always say to them, if you are going to be relevant in the future, it's about culture shaping. If whatever you are communicating cannot shape culture, and what does it mean to shape culture? What does it mean to shape culture? To impact on 5 areas: the way we live, the way we love, the way we play, the way we walk, and the way we die. I'll take it again. The way we live, the way we love, the way we play, the way we walk, and the way we die. Whatever you are creating, call it Disney World, call it Apple, call it Microsoft, call it Google, call it X, call it Tesla. They are impacting on one of those 5 areas intentionally. And whatever you are doing that has no place in those 5 areas, culture shaping, whatever you are doing that cannot unlock gratitude and usage in the system, you are jogging very fast into irrelevance. You are making bold moves into yesterday, not the future. So we have to humble ourselves to begin to recognize that momentum is not necessarily progress. Movement can still be in the wrong direction. Progress plus movement in the right direction, that is progress. Momentum, motion plus movement in the right direction. And there's a lot of activity in religion, but it's a lot of powerful activities into the past, not into the future. And Africa, as far as I'm concerned, not just Africa, people everywhere that call on any system called religion must be able to represent it with a product, with a service, with a philosophy, with a theory. Somebody gave us capitalism. Somebody gave us democracy. Somebody gave us, productivity. Somebody gave us division of labor. Adam Smith, 1776, gave us division of labor. And people have come to give Nazism to the world, communism, socialism, terrorism. Everybody's creating unto good or unto evil. You have to produce something at the highest level that can unlock usage in the world. No matter what you want to do, whether you want to destroy the world or you want to fix it, you have to produce something. You can't sit in the middle, pitying yourself and thinking that you're going to be known or relevant. No, your religion must produce either unto good or evil. Production is a constant, right? Production, less consumption, that's capital formation. To form any form of capital, whether it's monetary capital, reputation capital, social capital, adventure, whatever the capital is, production is a constant. And I think that is the burden that religion brings. And Africa as a whole must come back to ask ourselves what the essence of a divine connection with a superior being must be, right? We must ask that question.
Do you enjoy Olakunle Soriyan's content here on YouTube? Then you should be on Illuminate. It's the digital library of Olakunle Soriyan with over 25 years of private sessions, decoded frameworks, and content unavailable anywhere else. Visit bit.ly/PK Illuminate to start your 7-day trial today. Subscription starting from $10 per month.
Feedback from the future.